Welcome back, Legion. Just want to have a chat to you guys today about how I kind of came up with my nutrition, basically. So the kind of plan or structure that I'm trying to follow, and I have been following over the past 10 weeks now. So when I first started out, I kind of sat down and used some of my resources and worked out roughly how many calories I would need to gain weight, and then I split that into how much carbohydrate, protein, and fat I would need. To be honest, you don't really need to do it. You don't need to do it for everyone. I like to do it because I'm a bit funny like that. I kind of like to know the numbers, and at the end of the day, it's not really an exact science. I just needed like a rough idea of what I would need, and over years, I've kind of worked out how much that is without having to be too specific. Having said that, I kind of roughly worked out what I would be eating, and I punched it into a thing like I think it was MyFitnessPal, just to see if I was around the ballpark. Again, it's not really that accurate, but it's a good way to just give me some guidance to get me started. Really, what I was going to use as my main indicator of whether I was eating enough or whether it was going to work would be the scales. The scales and the skin folds and the body comp stuff would give me the best indicator to whether whatever I was eating was actually doing what it was supposed to do. So I made sure I tracked it every week, and I was going up every week. So I was like, well, I must be eating enough. Because really it comes down to input versus output. So if I'm inputting more than I'm outputting, that's energy versus energy in versus energy out, well then I'm going to be gaining weight. So I clearly must have been doing that because I gained about a kilo a week for the last couple of weeks. Progress has slowed down a little bit, but guess what I did? I didn't really worry about the calories so much. I was curious and just looked at the numbers, but to be honest, the strategy I used was just to eat more. Just a little bit more. Just try and find either an extra meal or try and get a little bit more carbohydrate or protein at an extra meal. So how I kind of split that up is I just think about it in meals, because at the end of the day, the numbers need to reflect like what's on your plate. So your plate is what you're actually going to put in your mouth. So really, as long as I made sure that I had enough protein, so I try and use I use my hands as a guide. So I've got my palm size here and the thickness this way. So I try and have 1 to 2 servings of protein or portions of protein, which is 2 palm sizes. I try and have a cupped hand of carbohydrate at probably outside of the workout, and then after a workout or during a workout is where I have a lot of carbohydrate because the effects of insulin on muscle repair and muscle growth. So I'll try and have maybe 2 to 3 cups of carbohydrate, so quite a fair bit at that meal. It's my higher carbohydrate meal. And then I'm trying to always have like a fruit or a vegetable with those. The fats I don't really worry about trying to get specific amounts in. I try and keep them a little bit lower in fat because I'm having so much carbohydrate, and I'm trying to gain as much lean muscle mass as possible. So with fat, I try and keep it a little bit lower. I use my thumb as a rough guide. I try and only have 1 to 2 thumbs of servings of fat in a meal, but basically I didn't really go out of my way to include fat. It would just be more if I'm cooking meat. Meat has a little bit of saturated fat, which is perfectly fine, especially if you're trying to gain muscle, because you need a little bit of saturated fat it's really good for your testosterone production and male sex hormone production. So that was still important to me. And then really it was like cooking oil. So I just use olive oil. I use coconut oil. So I didn't really go out of my way to include specific amounts of fat. And like I said, at the end of the day, I just made sure I was tracking my progress week in, week out, and really only started including things if my progress started to stall, so it stalled for a little bit. So I made sure the next week that I ramped up my intake just a little bit more. Just like we're talking like 200 or 300 extra calories a day. One of the big ones that I found actually really helped was, I guess psychologically, it's a lot easier to eat more on a workout day because you feel like, I've worked hard, I should eat more. The hardest days for me were the off days, so when I don't train, because it's hard to eat that much when you're not going to work out. But that really helped me quite a fair bit because that's that kind of accumulated effect. So it's all good trying to eat lots on your workout days, but if you're having like, oh, I'm only working out 3 days a week, so that means I'm having 4 days off. You know, those 4 days off, if I'm not eating enough, well, I'm not going to make any progress. So I made sure I was eating enough. I wasn't over consuming, keeping the meals relatively the same as well, like always looking for a carbohydrate, always looking for a protein, and then the fats just came along for the ride basically, and trying to have fruits and vegetables at each meal. Thanks for that, guys. I'll try and whip up a video of maybe more specifically what I was eating. I like to keep my stuff pretty boring and pretty straightforward, but that's me. You can definitely be more creative. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to give you some insight into that next time. Cheers.